Hi, my name is Aman Ghawanmeh, and I remember how important those initial friendships were for me as a newcomer here in Canada. A lot of immigrants struggle with making friendships, relationships, and it can be very isolating. Today, we have Jing, who came here as an international student from China, and Angelica, who came here as a Filipino immigrant with her family. They discussed their first friendships, how they managed to create a community, and how lonely the first few years were. Let's take a look.
My name is Angelica, 27-year-old born and raised in Brunei. Came here when I was in 2010. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. When I was 15, and yeah.
And what about you, Jing?
My name is Jing Zhu. I come from China. I've been here for about 4 years, and now currently I'm doing the customer service job for IBI. That is work from home.
Wonderful. I'm so happy that I have you girls here. So let's get into it. I usually start off by asking people, so what are your first memories in Canada? And a lot of people go, oh, it was so cold. And I feel like I've gotten that answer a few times now. So I want to ask a different question. I want to ask about the first friendly interaction that you had with somebody here. I know a lot of us feel kind of alienated and very much alone the first while. So I want to know, do you remember the first friend or friendly interaction that you've had? Nika, can you tell me about yours?
Okay, so we came in July, so that was like summertime. So school wasn't happening yet. So I made my first friend in September, grade 9. Her name was Bianca, and I like always tell everyone the story. Like, she was running for grade 9 rep, and I was so lost. Like, like school in Brunei was totally different. Like, we just stayed in one class, and like teachers would like come into the class and teach, whereas here you have to go to different classes and walk around, and it's per semester. So anyways, I was so lost. I didn't know where to go. My cousin, who I went to school with, she was like a year older than me, and she had her own classes and stuff. Bianca literally showed me everywhere, and I'm like, oh, like this, she's so nice, and then all of a sudden, like, I found out she was running for grade 9 rep. So I'm like, oh, maybe that's why she was nice. But then, I gave her benefit of a doubt. She actually, we were friends for like the entire time in high school. So yeah, that was my grade 9 first friend experience, and it was great.
Wow, are you guys still friends now?
More like acquaintances. I still have her on social medias, but like, we check in like once in a while, say happy birthday, but that's about it.
That's still sweet. Yeah. What about you, Jing? Do you remember yours?
I think my first friend here is my classmate when I was an international student here. She's 10 years younger than me. So I never thought we can be good friends. But later, whenever we are together, I felt very happy because she's young. She makes my life dynamic and more colorful. She opened a door to me to let me see a different life. Yeah, but what a pity. Now she went back to her own country. So, yeah, sometimes we just chat on social media. Yeah, but still, I'm very happy. Yeah, and I'm grateful to have such a friend.
I'm happy to hear that. It seems like I feel it's relatively easy to recall the first friendly experience that you've had here, because even for me, I remember the first friend I ever made, like you said, it was like at the beginning of school year, and I came in late because I was in Jordan, and I came a couple of weeks late, and the kids had already started school.
Yeah.
And I remember being so frightened to ask questions. Like, I remember I looked at the board and it said language arts, and I'm like, what does that mean? But I was too scared to ask anybody.
Yeah.
And then finally, when I got the courage, I asked the girl next to me, and her name was Anya, and I was like, hey, what does language arts mean? And I remember being like so frightened that she would laugh, and she went, oh, it's just English. I don't know why they call it that. And I was like, oh, cool. And then after that, it was just that, I realized that it was a lot in my head, the fear of people thinking that I'm different or my language is so weak that nobody want to talk to me.
Yes, totally relatable. Yep.
It's so in your head. It's not, most people are not really like that.
Yeah.
I remember the first time that I felt like my integration truly begun. And that's something that I talk about a lot, is the integration, or the in-between of feeling like you're becoming a part of the community you're in. That only started when I was like invited to my first birthday party in grade 8. You know, I think it was grade 8, grade 7. I can't remember, but I remember going to the party and again feeling that kind of self-conscious. I'm not like these other kids. These other kids have not experienced what I've experienced. But then you show up and then you're just a kid at this party.
Yes.
And it made such a big difference for me because it gave me a sense of confidence to speak more, to participate in things more, to not hide away in my house. Or for me, it was a lot of times hiding away in books. And it was, I think if I didn't experience these experiences, if I didn't have those experiences at the time, I wouldn't be where I am now. If I didn't have the courage to speak to people, I think my experience would have been a lot worse. I think about my sister who came here in her 20s, and unfortunately for her, she didn't have a school to go to where you can meet people.
Yep.
It's much easier to get to meet people and speak to people. So her integration begun when she met her now husband, right? He was that person for her who showed her around, who introduced her to a new community. He became her version of home here. And so now moving on from that, I want to kind of bring up the topic of today, which is friendships and relationships, and how integral they are and how important they are in the integration process for us immigrants. So I want to hear from you girls about those barriers that you have felt and your successes that you later on felt in forming friendships and relationships here in Canada. Nika, we'll start with you.
Well, honestly, I feel, like I said, Bianca was a part of my life basically my entire high school career. So I actually, now that I think about it, I actually went to her birthday, which was, I think the next year was, I know her birthday's in April, so I still remember that too.
Wow.
She invited me, and I met a few of her friends that she went to grade school with, because they all went, like, some of them went to different schools after, like, in high school. I think that was also a part of, like, you know, me feeling like I belonged to an actual friend group, and, like, it made me feel like, okay, like, you know, this is starting not to look bad. Like, I actually have potential to make friends here, and I'm starting to get comfortable with life in Canada. And, like, again, like you said or had mentioned, that, like, it is all in our head for sure, that, like, you know, what if we don't belong, you know? Like, I grew up in Asia, like, you know, like, you're going to a very, like, white country. So they're gonna be like, oh, who's this girl now, right? So honestly, like, I feel like I was lucky enough to be in high school with a bunch of other cultures that made me feel like, okay, like, you know, like, we're like, oh my god, sorry, Canada is such, like, a multicultural place. Multicultural?
Yeah, multicultural, right?
Yeah, I think that was definitely helped a lot of, like, my integration part of, you know, belonging to Canada.
Is seeing faces
Basically.
like yours.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of
And
course.
I mean, besides Bianca, I also made friends with, like, Filipinos, and, like, I didn't grow up with a lot of, like, Filipinos, because Brunei is, like, a lot of their population's Chinese, Malay. So I did grow up with a lot of Malay people that I was more comfortable with. But, like, when I moved here, I actually was able to learn more about the Philippines than, like, being in Brunei.
Wow.
So, yeah. So that was a part of, like, I'm like, okay, like, I'm starting to learn more about my actual culture too, behind Canadian culture.
That's so cool. Who
Yeah.
would have thought?
Yeah.
What about you, Jing? What was your experience?
So I've been here about 4 years now, and I think I am very lucky to make the decision that come to Canada, because life here is what I want. You know, everything is difficult from the very beginning. Yeah, that's true. We have difficulty to make friends. We have difficulty to build the networking. We have problems to look for the job. But everyone I met here, although I don't have many friends here, but everyone, strangers, with the, or passengers, or even when I did my part-time job at the grocery store, or the customers, everyone I met are kind and friendly. Yeah, they taught me a lot. They taught me how to use the credit card and and the debit card in Canada, and how to grade people in Canada. And
I feel like it's like a Windsor thing though. Instead
yeah,
of,
yeah,
like I
very,
feel like if you go to
very
Toronto, they
friendly.
won't do that stuff.
Yeah, it's a small
And-
town thing. Yeah.
Exactly. And you know, in China, we don't have stop signs. So when I first came here, I don't know what those red things are. They're everywhere. So I
Just
felt
drives through it
confused.
instead.
Yeah. And one day I just stood there and I stared at the red thing. And a stranger came by and asked if I need any help. So I said, I'm confused. I don't know how to cross the road. You know, the red thing would never turn to green.
Of course.
Yeah. And the stranger so patiently explained how that works. So, although I have a few friends here, but yes, I think I am very, very lucky. Everyone here, yes, they treat me well. They teach me a lot life experience and what we need as a newcomer to Canada. Yes.
Of
Yeah.
course. Like you said, I do think it might be like a small town thing, like Angelica was saying. It's I think a big part of why a lot of people feel more comfortable settling into Windsor. Not only is it hugely multicultural, like you said, but it's also an area where it's maybe easier for you to make these bonds rather than a big city where everybody's busy all the time.
Yes. Yeah.
It makes me think about how you girls have managed to make friendships through the medium of school. I feel like that's so important for so many people. It's
Yes.
like if you come here at a school age, then it's easier for you to make friends. And Jing, you came here for university, but I know you told me that your social life suffered because of COVID. I mean, you came and then you hardly got to know people before COVID happened. Tell me more about that, please.
Yeah, not only because of COVID. I think people, their friends are basically the first, their playmates who grow up together. Their students who study together. Their colleagues who have a very good relationship. Or their friends that they meet in some social activities, right? But for me, I didn't grow up here, so I don't have any playmates. And I was an international student here, that's right. But all my classmates are international students. I did make some friends, but some of them, after graduation, they went back to their own country. And some of them, they went to work in other cities and provinces in Canada. And my work is special. I work from home, and my working schedule is special. I am off on Wednesday and Thursday, so I don't have the suitable time and to hang out with my friends. And basically some activities they will be held at weekends, right?
Yes. Yes.
So that's a problem. And I work from home and never have the opportunities to meet my co-workers face to face because they are located in everywhere in Canada. Yeah. And moreover, I don't have that kind of information that when and where I can participate in some social activities
Or events, of course.
Yeah.
How would you know about them?
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't have that information. So it is more difficult for me,
Of course.
yeah, to make friends.
Yeah, that's only logical.
Yeah. And COVID-19 just made this worse.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
I feel like even a lot of people that I know have been, I feel like their social life suffered and even their social skills suffered after COVID. When you don't have
True.
those interactions for a while, they go stale.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine how it's like to have to even establish them in the first place during such a difficult time.
Yep.
I want to kind of switch gears a little bit about the differences in kind of the social systems. So I grew up in Jordan, and I think a lot of Arabs would relate to this, is that we're more like there's like a familial system in general society, and most people view each other as there's like a big family unit, and people are so interconnected, and that's usually a wonderful thing, not always. And I remember one of the things that, like, what we have back home, for example, social visits are like a responsibility, right? So you have to visit your parents' home or your grandparents' home a couple of times a week. You have to visit the neighbors. All of these things are necessary. And there's the big like a drop by kind of system in place where people just, there's no phone call, nothing. They just knock on your door, and you have to always be prepared to serve them sweets and drinks and whatever.
Yeah.
I remember when we came to Canada, we very quickly realized that it doesn't exist. It doesn't. No one is coming by without. No one's coming by at all
Without,
let alone
like, a
with a
heads up,
call.
yeah.
Yeah. And it was so lonely because, for my mom, for example, like that was a big portion of her life as a stay-at-home mom, was to run our social network. That was her responsibility. She lost that, and then for the rest of us, we lost our friends and our family and all these connections we've had our whole life. And it was really shocking to get used to the more individualistic style that's here, where it seems like the work-life balance is different here too. You know, people are really busy all the time, and you can't force yourself on others. Back home, it's so important socially, and it's accepted to have a big portion of your day be spent talking and interacting with the people that you love. I want to know how it was like for your immigration experience. Do you recall kind of having that realization of the system is different, inherently different?
I personally don't think there's a lot of difference in terms of that. Like, still growing up in like Brunei, it's still like I still grew up culturally Filipino. A lot of Filipinos, though, they do like to party and all that stuff. But Brunei is an Islamic state or country, so there's not a lot of partying to do. But also, like, my parents were so strict. Like, growing, like, I could never go to two places in a day. Like, if I have like two different friends that like, hey, coming over to my house just to hang out, like, I'd only have to pick one friend. And I was always like that was just how it's always been for me. Like, there was just not a lot of social life. So I think like even that was a huge part of my integration here, was because like I am so socially awkward that it was hard for me to make friends in school. Although like I said, like I had Bianca and all my other friends after, but it was still hard for me to kind of like be comfortable in like a social setting. But other than that, like I don't like I was like my parents were strict. Even like when I moved back to their house last year after moving from Hamilton, like I still had curfews and I couldn't be out like past 12. I'm 27. And so like, you know, I feel like some cultural like strictness just don't ever leave.
Go away. Absolutely. It's like the thing I hear a lot of people here say, oh, like a guy friend at school or work would be like, hey, we're going out to do this. Can you come? And you're like, I'm like, how do I tell this boy
Yes.
that my parents will not let me go out with boys, even though I'm a grown woman?
Exactly.
You know? What about you, Jing? Do you have these moments where you realized making friends or interacting with friends back home is not like how it is here?
Um, I feel very sorry about that because I don't have too many opportunities to stay together with my friends and to feel that. But based on the limited times, I can feel the biggest difference is the way we have food.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that.
The first time I have food with my husband's uncle and auntie. They live in Toronto. So their son-in-law is Canadian. So the first time when we visit them and we have dinner together, I directly use chopsticks and pick some dish that I liked and I add. And then suddenly I found there's the public spoon there. You know that?
Yes.
Oh yeah, the serving spoon.
I know
Yes,
exactly
the
what you mean.
serving spoon.
Okay,
Yes,
yeah.
that's what I mean. Yeah. And then I realized that wow, each dish there's a serving spoon in each dish.
Yeah.
So, but I didn't notice that before. I used my
Your own personal.
yeah, chopsticks. I feel very, very embarrassed.
Oh no.
See,
Speaking of like that, sorry. I grew up with spoon and fork. So my first time ever having friends over at my parents' house, like we were eating like I'm pretty sure we ordered Chinese and like I served them spoon and fork.
And they're like, where are the chopsticks?
No.
No.
They were like, what am I gonna do with the spoon?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The spoon
Because they
thing.
only eat with fork and knives. So
Yes.
I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you scoop your rice with it, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we're gonna use fork. I'm like, okay.
I relate to this too. I remember a teacher in grade 7 making fun of me for like wanting to eat a salad with a spoon. I'm like, but our salads are a lot like looser.
Yes.
We don't use lettuce.
Yeah.
And he's like, what are you gonna do? Just try to pick up that piece of lettuce for 2 hours? And I'm like, I'm trying. That's right. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the differences between our cultures and compare each other and then compare each other to Canada
In 2023, I'm in.
in 2023. My friends in Jordan, for example, this is where like the friendship culture differs. My friends in Jordan, we would not talk for years, or we would message each other 3 times a year to make sure that we're still alive. And then when I see them again, when I go home to visit again, it's like nothing has happened. It's like nothing has changed. And then when I realized that in Canada, if you do that, you're seen as a neglectful friend. It's like more important here in the culture to text your friend daily or check in on your friends more often.
Yeah.
And back home, that's not really a thing. I want to know, can you think of any differences between the way that friends interact here and the way that friends interact back home? Nikki, go ahead.
I get that. My friends in Brunei, like I do keep in touch with them. They're my close friends story, basically. That's pretty much how we interact, but we don't like have a set schedule like, hey, let's check on each other this amount of time. A part of me growing up as well now, or us getting older in my friend group, is that we also don't do that as often anymore. Like I understand university, high school, we all had our time. We didn't have our adult jobs basically, so we had more time to do that. Nowadays too, like I have a huge group of friends that like we're starting to, create our own life now. Basically, if we keep in touch, we keep in touch. But like other than that, like there's no hard feelings if we don't. Because I feel like we're at that age or like moment in our lives where it's like we're trying to, reach our goal in life. And, and that's just how it is.
Feels natural.
Yeah.
What about you, Jing? What have you noticed?
I am learning. I am
That's right.
in the process of collecting such kind of information, and I hope one day that I can use.
Just
To
write
make
notes.
friends easier here.
Yeah, that will make me easier to get along with my friends in the future. Yeah, I'm learning.
Yeah.
Of course, I understand that. I think there are so many differences that are you can only learn if you do hand-on experience.
Yeah.
And I really look forward to when you make tons of friends. And then next year I talk to you and it's like, you know everything. I can't wait for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The next thing I think that brings us to what you're talking about, actually, Jing, is the loneliness that you can feel as an immigrant. I think we feel lonely in more ways than one, right? You feel lonely because the culture is unfamiliar. You feel lonely because maybe your family members that you came here with are unavailable or are busy with their own life. If you came here alone like an international student, then you left your family back home.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know how you have been able to manage your loneliness. If you can remember, how did you manage your loneliness as an immigrant? Jane, go ahead.
So for this question, I definitely have more to talk than the previous one. Because from I have many moments that I feel very lonely here. But you know, such is the life. If life doesn't bring you down, it will definitely make you stronger. So I remember clearly that in the winter of 2021, so the whole world was shrouded in the shadow of the COVID-19. So at that time, I was here in Canada alone with myself. My husband was in China. And I spent, I think, the loneliest winter of my life. I spent the Chinese New Year. I celebrated Chinese New Year myself.
Oh, alone.
Yeah, on the first day of the Chinese New Year, I put on makeup because life would go on, right? Yes. And I held my cat. I took a picture as a souvenir. And I thought that in the future, I'm going to show this photo to my children and told them that what their mother's story is. Yeah, so
That's a really
Then-
touching story.
thank you. Then I began to thought what I'm going to tell my children. Just the sadness, a very negative story, or I want to bring some brightness part to my children. So suffering is not what I want, but it can definitely make me stronger. Yeah. So I think people encounter problems and difficulties now and then, here and there.
Yeah.
Not only for newcomers, right? For everyone in the world.
Of course.
Yes. So as long as we face the difficulties optimistically, life will give us candies.
That's such a beautiful way to look at it. Good for you. I feel like that takes a lot of strength to face such loneliness like that. And then,
Yeah.
Especially alone, like moving to a new country too. That's definitely like a challenge.
of course, I mean, your husband wasn't able to come to Canada for another, how many years did you have to spend here alone? You thought you'd be coming together, and how long did it take for him to arrive?
3 years and a half.
Wow. 3 years of your partner being away from you.
Yeah, no.
That's so heartbreaking.
That's definitely hard.
Now, speaking of partners, it's a perfect segue to the next conversation. So my friends and I often have because my friends and I are all immigrants, and we have this conversation so often regarding finding a partner as an immigrant. There is a lot of pressure, a lot of familial pressure to find somebody of your own culture or your own religion. And you start off and you go, okay, I'm gonna try to do that, and then you look around and it's like, you're not in your country, so your pool is already kind of tiny. And then you look into that pool and you go, okay, how many of these people do I like? And it shrinks a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us want to give our parents, as immigrant kids, we want to give our parents that dream of, hey, look, I brought somebody home that you are familiar with, somebody that you can speak to and that you can understand. And that's not always the case. So my friends and I talk about how challenging it is for us to navigate that area of dating where I still like have my own expectations and my own kind of wants and needs in a person, while simultaneously accepting that I will not get all of them because I'm not living in my own country. And how to kind of break that to your parents, who seriously struggle to understand. Yeah, but they also say, oh, but you can just find such a nice Muslim. Why can't you just find a nice Muslim boy? And I'm like, it's not that easy, you know? And a lot of us go through trials and tribulations to even find love as immigrants, let alone love that is suitable to your parents.
Yeah.
Nikki, I want to know, because Jing is married, but you are not.
Okay,
So
way
you're
to
my
call me out.
target. You're my target for this question. How have you been navigating the dating scene as an immigrant?
Honestly, I don't think it's like like Filipinos are pretty much open about the cultural differences. Like we are very flexible in who we, I guess, end up with. I think what my parents want me to end up with is obviously someone who can obviously, respect me, provide like good income for the family and able to provide, like a good safe home, and not more so like the cultural. Again, I grew up in a different like culture, basically. Like Brunei and the Philippines are very different cultures. So I feel like they were also inclined, even if we were to stay in Brunei, like they were probably like, yeah, she's probably not going to marry, a Filipino. So even coming here, like I've never really dated my own kind. Again, growing up with different cultures in Brunei, it's like I find that myself, like I'm flexible to like being able to adapt to different cultures very easily. So for me, it's like it's not the cultural part where it makes the dating scene hard. I think it's just our generation that makes it hard. So it's not, again, like nothing to do with culture. I think it's just the world we live in now.
That's very interesting that you see it
Yes.
that way. You have a particularly different experience because your parents had already immigrated to another place.
Yes.
This is not completely unusual. Throughout this project, I've spoken to a lot of people, and this is including myself, who are second-time immigrants or second-time refugees. And I think I'm happy to hear that your parents are flexible, because for a lot of parents, they feel like, well, because of the first migration, I already had to sacrifice so much. I don't want to sacrifice more.
Yeah.
You try to maintain or almost like gatekeep this culture and this experience, and you want your kids to stay in this bubble.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult for parents to overcome that. But I'm happy to hear, and I've been seeing this more often. I've been seeing that the newer generation of parents, of immigrant parents, are more open to having their children meet some people from outside their own culture or religion. Now, before we kind of leave this conversation, I want to know, is there anything in particular that you girls would want to tell Canadians or tell Windsorites about your experience as a newcomer and why they should listen to this sort of thing? You could go ahead.
I'm gonna let you take this one first, so I can get an idea of like what to say.
If you have an idea about that.
So actually, first of all, I want to say is thank you for everyone here.
Of course,
thank
Jane.
you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone here, and thank you for all the people I met in Canada. As you said, Canada is a multicultural country, so everyone here is friendly, is nice. And the second, I would like to say that if our community, if some local relevant institutions can have more activities or offer our more opportunities to integrate the society,
Easier.
that would be great, because we are willing to contribute our strength to our community, to the city and the country. So the only thing we need is opportunity. And we hope we have those opportunities, because we are experienced, we are skillful. So once we have the opportunity, we will do our best.
Lovely. I'm happy to hear that. I hope so too. I hope that now that, COVID is kind of a little bit put in the past, that maybe we can start to see these cultural events and these communal events pop up so that we can create these connections.
Yeah.
What about you, Nika?
I'm gonna go off on Jing's experience, just because, like, again, like, she did have like a hard time when she came to Canada. I'm fortunate enough to like be able to like start friendships with school and everything. Again, like that was almost 13 years ago at this point. But I think like with social media nowadays too, it's like it's easy to just come up with an app maybe that could like I feel like that's like a good example of like how we can like come together as a community, like like the like people you want to hang out with. So it's like dating sites, but like for meeting people from your like culture basically, just to be able to integrate yourself into like life here, and like people who's been here and like talk about their experiences in that way, like instead of like just kind of figuring out on your own. But again, like I've met a lot of good Canadians that has helped me through like like building my way up to being a Canadian basically. And like it's just I think like that would be like a good idea to like have in the future, like a good app for that instead of like swiping left and right or in a guy.
You swipe left and right
yeah.
on a friend.
On a friend, yeah.
Is there anything that you would want the general public to know about the struggles and the kind of trials and tribulations that are faced by newcomers? Is there something that you wish people would have more empathy towards? Like I think for me, the importance in telling our stories is that as stories, as this is my experience, this is my life. I think it makes people realize that we're more than just like stats. That a certain amount of refugees have come in. All these refugees, each and every single one of them has a story, and it's important to highlight these stories and to humanize immigrants and refugees. So, is there anything that you'd like to add to that?
I feel like we were in discussion earlier about, I guess, going back home. Like, going back home, like, I mean, you're from Jordan. I came from Brunei, which is, like, halfway across the world.
Yeah.
Jing's from China, and booking a leave of absence or, like, a vacation isn't actually a vacation. So it's difficult for employers to, like, understand that it takes not even sometimes over a week to get over our jet lags. So like going to a country is like not like a vacation, more like I'm meeting my family. Like, I feel like employers need to, like I know like most employers, it's like you only get, depending on seniority, you only get 2 weeks off for an entire year.
Right.
2 weeks is not enough. First of all, like I need to stay sane in this company. I need to get out of here, once in a while. But like 2 weeks to go back home, like I don't think that's feasible.
Of course.
I feel like that would be something like I feel like should be looked into more, especially for immigrants, because again, like sometimes there's also like disasters that go like your mother was sick or something back home, like you have to stay longer. So, like, and then you're so worried about your job here that you're like, I don't know if I can go home that long.
You have to sacrifice these important moments that you could be spending with your family.
So it's like, I feel like that's one of the things that I would like to be looked on, like, or more into.
Explored.
Yes. So that's,
Jing was talking about this earlier too. I'm sorry, Nika, didn't mean to cut you off, but you were talking about this too. You're telling me that you have tried so many times to go back home throughout the past few years, and it's been just impossible due to the price tickets and other things. Can you tell us more about that, actually?
Yeah. I tried several times to go back. When I left my home, my parents adopted a cat. So that was a tiny cat at that time. And then 3 years and 4 years passed. I can only see the cat from the video. Yeah. Now he becomes a very, very handsome cat. Yeah.
He's a big boy now.
I hope one day I can. Yeah. I planned to go back last year, but that's a not good time because of the epidemic, and the plane tickets are so expensive. So now I plan to go back this summer vacation if I have the opportunity. So I totally agree with Angelica about the vacation thing that for our newcomers can go back to visit our families in our home country. I totally agree with that. So once I get a chance, and I will go back immediately.
I know the
Yeah.
feeling. I think I mean, like, my family can attest this. I have at least twice a year, I would have like a severe depressive episode because I'm not home. It would last sometimes days of tears, missing weddings and missing the birth of cousins. My best friend got married without me there. She had kids without me there. My own changes, I wish I can have them be part of the changes that are happening to me here and the things that I'm experiencing here.
Yeah.
It feels like constant grief for me to be away. And I know that I'm privileged to even have a country to go back to. Not a lot of people have that.
Yes.
I really hope that we can all go home for a bit and
Yes.
not worry about losing our jobs. 'Cause
Exactly.
I know that's
Yep.
something that we all think about.
Yes.
All the immigrants that I know think about this. How am I going to visit with 2 weeks? What am I going to do with 2 weeks? It's not a vacation. I'm going home to my roots, right?
Yes. Yeah.
On that note, I wanted you girls to think of a song that reminds you of your time integrating, or reminds you of your initial visit to Canada, or even reminds you of the topic. You had one. Tell me yours.
Honestly, this was like probably the hardest part of the question. When I was figuring it out, I'm like, I don't know anything. Like, I have no idea. And then it came to me because I was listening to my like home playlist. And it's actually a Malay song, Indonesian song. So they do speak basically the same Melayu, Bahasa Melayu. So spoken in Singapore, Malaysia, Brunei, and Indonesia. So it's called Kenangan Terindah, which means beautiful memories. It is a breakup song. But how I thought about it, because I was listening to it constantly, like before coming here. It's basically like, for me, like how I integrated with this topic is breaking up with the country that I was basically like in and was born in and was raised in, and the culture I grew up with. It's like, it was definitely hard, like moving here. Like, you know, the first few months was a wreck for me. Like, I was like, you know, throwing stuff on the ground, like, I want to go home, you know, and I felt like that would have been like a perfect like song for it, like how I felt, because I was breaking up with my country basically.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
This feel like heartbreak, right?
Yes, 100%.
What about you, Jing?
For me, I think the song is "See You Again" by Wiz Khalifa. My I'm sorry, my grandpa passed away a year after I came to Canada. He is the person that I love most in the world. As I said, that as a newcomer, we has just begun our new life here. So a lot of difficulties, that's true. But that's the way I chose. The reason why I chose this way is because everyone has only one life. We should choose the way that to live the life we like. Everyone has the same destination. So every life has the same destination. So I think one day, if I can meet my grandpa in another world, I can tell him that I've been doing well in Canada through my own efforts. And I appreciate my decision of coming here. My overall life is very pleasant. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's why I think that's the song.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
I'm sorry for your loss. Oh, this guy. I'm sorry about it was like we were having a nice conversation, but I know that these things have to be said as well.
Yeah.
This grief, right? So that's all for today. This conversation has been wonderful. And thank you for sharing these very, very personal memories with us. I really appreciate it. Thank you
for
girls.
having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, girls.
Thank you for watching this episode of Halfway to Home. My name is Aman Ghawanmeh, and this series focuses on the journeys of newcomers here in Canada that are often overlooked. Please check out the rest of the series, and thank you for your time.